President Trump wants to make the District of Columbia safer. There's a lot of reasons why this is important, not just because he lives there, but it's also our nation's capital. You know, you can pick and choose whether you want to go to Chicago or not, or New York, or Baltimore, or Detroit, or any other rat-infested Democrat-run city. But the capital, well, you might be compelled to come here for one reason or another. You might have business with the government. You might want to petition your representative. You might not have a choice but to come to Washington, D.C. And you deserve to not have to look over your shoulder and think you're about to get shivved in the back, right? Of course, right. That's what makes D.C. different. Well, Donald Trump, just about an hour ago, conducted a huge presentation at the White House talking about what he's doing as president, running the executive branch of our federal government to make D.C. safer. We're going to show you a bit of that press conference coming up in a second. And we're also going to show you what some hosts on MSNBC try to do, because believe it or not, Trump wanting to make D.C. safer apparently is racist. I know. Shocking, but MSNBC went there. Before we show you that, though, I do want to show you some residents of the District of Columbia. It is a predominantly African-American city, and so the victims of all of the crime and the homeless and criminal vagrancy and piles of human feces on the sidewalks and used hypodermic needles sitting in a kid's park and all of the other dangers that you have to deal with, well, the victims of all of that lack of quality of life are Black people. I mean, maybe it's me, but if you want to make life better for the Black people who live in D.C., maybe that's the opposite of racist. Well, let's hear from the people of D.C. about how much they love their government.
We have home rule for a reason.
Because if it's safety and crime the president is worried about, Green has some thoughts to add to his agenda.
Or is he going to come pick up our trash next? Is that what I should expect? We do have areas with high grass that he can cut. I have infrastructure problems in my community. Can he put some funding on the table for that?
He shouldn't be making those kind of decisions. That's more like a dictator.
Gotti thinks that if this is the way the administration is going to continue,
everybody now is in like a big old gumbo pot of, you know what I'm saying? You don't know what's in it. You know what I'm saying? That's all. You don't know what you're going to get served.
Well, I can't argue with that logic, but think about it for a second. Is he going to come and fix this and clean that up? And here's the dude. You've got a government. You've got a council member in your ward. You've got a mayor. You pay a ton of money in taxes in this city, one of the most expensive tax cities. Why are you yelling at the president? Because he's actually trying to make things safer. It's kind of hilarious. But of course, this is what the media has done because they want to turn this into a racial issue. But watch.
Some shots, some bangs. We've seen police officers running in all directions.
I almost feel a little desensitized to it in a way because it seems to be of the norm. It's actually pretty scary that these teenagers own guns and that they are in the neighborhood shooting guns.
Yeah, okay. Seems like everything's great in D.C. The real problem is Trump, right? Okay, that brings us to this MSNBC panel, which, by the way, I got to say real quickly, RuPaul looks great with that afro wig. Good for him, right? He grew a beard out as well. No, that's not RuPaul? Are you sure? Okay. Apparently that is not RuPaul. Oh, yeah. That's the former head of the White House Correspondents Association, White House reporter for Politico. Now he's got his own show on MSNBC. He was going to be Kamala Harris's press secretary. So you know that he's going to be completely objective. Oh, and looky there, that's Jonathan Capehart, formerly a columnist at the Washington Post. He's the co-host here on The Weekend. Are you sure that's not The Weekend? I mean, the show is called The Weekend. And he's got, all right, I'm wrong. Jonathan Capehart has actually left the Washington Post because, as he put it, he doesn't want to keep writing columns about how bad America is. These guys love this country. They're fantastic. And the woman in the middle is the mayor of the District of Columbia, Muriel Bowser. Listen to how they try to frame this as a racial story, that Donald Trump just hates Black people. That's why he's trying to clean up all of the murders of Black people in the district. But more importantly, watch how Muriel Bowser pushes back.
One of the things that we have seen over and over from the president, from his team, Stephen Miller saying it's like Baghdad in Ethiopia. They seem to hold their harshest criticism sometimes for cities that are majority Black and brown. Do you see that, and what do you think that means?
I think that I have been dealing kind of with this issue for a number of years. It's kind of easy fodder on the campaign trail. But now we're talking about governing, and my job is to focus on making sure our city is running well, and people enjoy a great quality of life. And I think we're doing a really good job. We do need the federal government's help, as I mentioned, because they have an outsized influence on our criminal justice system. We need more prosecutors. We need more judges. There are other ways to help. Even we want to rebuild our jail, and there are ways that the feds can help with that.
Yeah, did you notice there where she said, yeah, the whole, racist thing and all that? Listen, that's great campaign fodder. It's okay to call him a racist when you're trying to defeat him in an election. But, now we got to govern. That's quite a reveal, isn't it? And yeah, the feds can help. We need more prosecutors. We need more judges. And we're going to rebuild our jail. Fascinating, isn't it? From Muriel Bowser. Now, listen, I have no hope that she's actually going to cooperate with Trump. I think she sees this as a money grab. She's been a complete disaster, right? I mean, geez, Muriel, I'm shocked that repainting a sidewalk and street in front of the White House to say Black Lives Matter Plaza didn't fix the crime problem, because that was her last big idea. Didn't help at all. You're going to see a whole lot of misinformation coming from the mainstream media today as this story develops. Here, you can see the screenshot here from CNN while Trump was at the White House delivering his remarks. See that violent crime in D.C.? Look, it's down 35% from 23 to 24. It's down another 26% from 24 to 25. Well, they're not showing you where it was before that. They're not showing you that it hit record numbers in 21 and 22. Also, they're not showing you this. It's a huge scandal here in Washington, D.C. A police commander has been suspended for changing crime statistics, for misreporting, to make it look like crime is better than it actually is. They literally fudged the numbers, and now here's CNN reporting those very numbers. And then there's this, Chuck Thies, who is a Democrat, by the way, here in Washington, D.C. He's one of the best political analysts in the district. He says when Bowser or any other D.C. poll says we're not experiencing a crime spike, understand something. From 21 to 24, D.C. averaged 209 murders a year. Just 10 years before that, it was 98 murders a year. So when they say, hey, crime is down right now, look at the homicide. Well, it doubled on your watch. So forgive us for celebrating that you've dropped another, 5 murders less this year than the year before. That's not something to celebrate. You're still screwing up. And look at this. This is really something. If we can blow this up, Kevin. Can I blow that up? No, I can't. There's something special about Washington, D.C. I know that a lot of people are listening and saying, oh, D.C. is run by Democrats and there's just a bunch of Democrats there and they keep voting the same way for decades. And you're right. But like I said, unlike New York or LA or San Francisco or Baltimore or Detroit or Chicago, this is the nation's capital. It has a higher standard. And by the way, there's a reason why it's a federal district and not its own state and not autonomous, why it's under the umbrella of the federal government. Because our capital is a place where we all belong. We may not all be able to vote here, but we all have a stake in this city. We all have to come to this city for business, for pleasure, for whatever. And people from around the world come here. Take a look at the murder rates compared to other capital cities. Madrid, 0.96 murders per 100,000 residents. London, 1.1. Delhi, India, 1.1 murder per 100,000. Delhi, India. Havana, 1.5. Paris, 1.64. Ottawa, 2.17. Freaking Canadians. Lima, Peru, 7.6 murders per 100,000 residents. Islamabad, 9.2 murders per 100,000 residents. Mexico City, 10.6 murders per 100,000 residents. These are all capital cities. Bogota, Colombia, known for their drug cartels, 15.1 murders per 100,000 residents. And they're at the top of the list, Washington, D.C., miles ahead of all those other capitals. Just about double the murders of Bogota, Colombia, with 27.5 murders per 100,000 residents. It's not even close. Hey, we're number one. We're number one. That's despicable. That's disgusting. You're coming from around the world. You want to see the bastion of freedom and constitutional republics from around the world. You want to come to Washington, D.C., and that's what you're greeted with? No, Trump is right. They got to fix it. Look how the Washington Post addressed the story today. It's hilarious. It's a safe city, so says the Washington Post. You just saw the numbers. Safe compared to what? It's a safe city, but overhearing and witnessing gang threats and then watching the camera footage of the thuggery is disturbing, said one resident. Get this. Speaking on the condition of anonymity over concerns of personal safety. So they found a resident of the district to give them a quote about how safe the city is, but then they admit how harrowing and terrifying it is to see the gangs wreaking their violence. And then the reporter for the Washington Post says, oh, that's great. Can I quote you on that? What's your name? Oh, yeah, don't take my name. You couldn't. They'll come after me. I don't want to deal with that. That's the Washington Post telling you how safe the city is. All right, so here's what President Trump had to say today. Take a look.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening, and they've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly.
All right. He's flanked by Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, of course, because the National Guard's being invoked. Also flanked on the other side by Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. Kash Patel, the Director of the FBI, was also there, as was the newly sworn-in U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Judge Jeanine Pirro. A little bit more from the President.
And you people are victims of it, too. You know, you're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. And you all know people and friends of yours that happened. And so you can be anything you want, but you want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live and feel safe and go into a store to buy a newspaper or buy something. And you don't have that now.
Let me be clear here. This is a man who grew up in Queens. He grew up in New York City during some pretty bad times, like when Ed Koch was mayor and then David Dinkins before Giuliani. He knows what a bad, corrupt, bedlam city looks like. And he also knows how it can be fixed because he lived through that in New York with Giuliani and then, to a lesser degree, Mike Bloomberg. So he had more to say.
It's becoming a situation of complete and total lawlessness. And we're getting rid of the slums, too. We have slums here. We're getting rid of them. I know it's not politically correct. You'll say, oh, so terrible. No, we're getting rid of the slums where they live.
I really feel like it sort of offends his sensibilities as a real estate developer to drive through some of these neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. And it's understandable. And the fact that he's president, he can actually do something about it because, well, those are the guidelines within the confines of the constitutional oversight that the federal government has on the District of Columbia. And so, and by the way, I've seen a lot of commentary. Oh, he's just trying to distract from this and distract from that, and this is just some new thing that he's doing. And it's just no. I've been following this guy, and as a local radio host in Washington, D.C., every morning on my radio station, we talk about crime, we talk about the quality of life problems here. And in his first term, Trump was talking about this. He's been talking about changing the way architecture is done in Washington, D.C., and get back to classical architecture so that we can be proud of the city. We don't have buildings built like the Housing and Urban Development Building, which looks like a penitentiary, frankly. Be proud of this city and be proud of our architecture and beautify it. And it's disheartening to drive by these beautiful world-class locations that people from literally all around the world want to come and visit, and you see graffiti on it, or you see people living in tents right outside of them. And it doesn't have to be this way. You saw the one clip of the woman in Washington, D.C. saying, yeah, we're getting kind of immune to it and numb to it because we just figured this is what. No, it doesn't have to be this way. It isn't like this elsewhere. We can actually have law and order. We can have peace. We can actually get out from under this. You just need to have the will. And the local government here for decades now has not had the will to do it.
When you saw that, the Navy Yard, I saw it this morning. They saw that they fought back against law. See, they fight back until you knock the hell out of them because it's the only language they understand. But they fought back against law enforcement last night. And they're not going to be fighting back long because I've instructed them and told them whatever happens, you know, they love to spit in the face of the police as the police are standing up there in uniform. They're standing and they're screaming at them an inch away from their face. And then they start spitting in their face. And I said, you tell them, you spit and we hit. And they can hit real hard.
Yeah, and let's just be clear here. The cops are outmanned here. I've been interviewing the head of the police union for several years now, and it's so understaffed because they have lost so many cops in Washington, D.C., because who wants to operate under these conditions, especially knowing that you've got a Black Lives Matter Plaza mayor and you've got a district council who are trying to change the terms of engagement with criminals in these. That's why juveniles are wreaking havoc. That's why they're carjacking. That's why they're engaging this way. And he said, you can see it from last night. It was actually Saturday night in the Navy Yard, which is right down by where the baseball stadium is in Washington. It's less than a mile from the Capitol, just straight down South Capitol Drive. And there was mayhem in the streets in Navy Yard and shootings. And yeah, they fought back against the cops because the cops are outnumbered. And that's why he's bringing in National Guard reinforcements. He's employing the Park Service police. There's all these jurisdictions in Washington, D.C. You've got the Secret Service and the Capitol Police and the Park Service Police, and you've got the FBI, and you've got all these other agencies, and they're most under the federal control of the president and the executive branch, and he's employing as many as he can. And you also heard him there say that he is exercising control over the police department as well, the D.C. Police Department. Now, I believe that the rules within the home rule law that allows D.C. to have a modicum of home rule is that the president can take control in dire situations of the Metropolitan Police Department for a 48-hour period. So this isn't going to be a long-term thing. If he wants longer, I think he has to go to Congress for that, and Congress, of course, is not in session. But just in 48 hours, they're going to be able to redirect and reassign how things are done in this town, and that's a good thing for anyone who cares, anyone who works here or lives here.
This is a tragic emergency, and it's embarrassing for me to be up here. You know, I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday. I don't like being up here talking about how unsafe and how dirty and disgusting this once beautiful Capitol was, with graffiti all over the walls. It's another part of it, by the way, because we're talking about safety, but we're also talking about beautification. We have the most beautiful, potentially, Capitol in the world. We always have.
That's right. By the way, just quickly, he misspoke. He's not going to Russia this Friday. That would have been a breaking story. He's going to Alaska. Although, as we all know, he's going to Alaska for a summit with Vladimir Putin and the Russian delegation and Marco Rubio and the American delegation, where they're going to have some conversations about the Ukraine war. So he will not be going to Russia. But he will be able to see Russia from Alaska. It's my understanding. Attorney General Pam Bondi then took the podium.
Let me be crystal clear. Crime in D.C. is ending and ending today. We are going to use every power we have to fight criminals here. President, thank you for caring about our capital. Families come here every summer. Our museums are free. We have the National Zoo. We have the National Gallery. D.C. should be a place where everyone can come and feel safe.
Okay, real fast. The museums aren't free. They're subsidized. Someone's paying for them. You are. It's through the Smithsonian, but they are fantastic. Some of them you have to pay for because they're not under the auspices of the Smithsonian, like the Spy Museum or the Holocaust Museum. I don't know. I just feel like I should give you more information about this because not every museum is free, and I don't want you to come in and complain that you didn't get in free. That's all. Mount Vernon also, you got to pay for it, but it's worth it. I promise. One last word here. One of the problems in Washington, D.C. is even when the cops arrest somebody, the U.S. attorney for the last 4 years under Joe Biden would let them off with a slap on the wrist, give them cashless bail, put them right back on the street again, wouldn't prosecute them, wouldn't give them any harsh sentences, you know, like all the other prosecutors around this country. They were more interested in prosecuting your grandma for walking through a door that was held open by a Capitol Police officer on January 6th than they were going after carjackers. Well, there's a new U.S. attorney in town, Jeanine Pirro, and she's fired up.
I see too much violent crime being committed by young punks who think that they can get together in gangs and crews and beat the hell out of you or anyone else. They don't care where they are. They can be in DuPont Circle, but they know that we can't touch them. Why? Because the laws are weak. I can't touch you if you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old and you have a gun. I convict someone of shooting another person with an illegal gun on a public bus in the chest, intent to kill. I convict him. And you know what the judge gives him? Probation. Says you should go to college. We need to go after the DC Council and their absurd laws. We need to get rid of this concept of, no cash bail. We need to recognize that the people who matter are the law-abiding citizens, and it starts today. But it's not going to end today because the president is going to do everything we need to do to make sure that these emboldened criminals understand we see you, we're watching you, and we're going to change the law to catch you. And my final note is this. These kids understand that the jurisdiction is through the state attorney general, Brian Schwab. I did a poster of the young man from Doge who was beaten bloody with a severe concussion, a broken nose. And then I did a poster of what happens to those kids because I can't arrest them. I can't prosecute them. They go to family court and they get to do yoga and arts and crafts. Enough. It changes today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Fiery and great stuff. And it's about time. And this is going to be, again, incredibly popular across this country. And believe it or not, I think ultimately right here in Washington, D.C. and in the communities surrounding this area. And make no mistake, Virginia, Northern Virginia is just across the Potomac from Washington, D.C. They're affected by the crime in the district. And there's an election going on this year in Virginia for the governor's seat. And I assure you, this is going to affect that race as well. This is good for the quality of life of people in this city and people who have to work in this city and people who are going to travel to this city. And it's also good politics. It's one of those 80-20 issues. You tell me who's against Donald Trump and the federal government finally taking control and applying law and order values to this city that has been, well, as he put it, bedlam for way too long. I don't think you're going to find anyone who opposes it. And if they do, well, it's because they're part of the problem.